probably top 3 most ominous title jingles I've heard. Hello everyone, and welcome to Let's Play Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. A little bit of a prequel, but also I think alternate universe take on the Bloodstained Ritual of the Moon game that came out sometime in, I think, late 2019 now. This came out a year prior just to kind of hold the fans off until then. For right now, though, we're just going to boot on up. We're going to be playing normal mode on veteran difficulty just because it's what I'm comfortable with. There once was a man who had been given the moon's curse by demons. That man was Zangetsu. Wrapped in crimson garb with eyes like fire, he relentlessly pursued the demons who cursed him. As he journeyed from one pit of darkness to another, he would stop at nothing until he struck down every last demon in his path. One night, he sensed the looming presence of a great demon. He swore to eradicate all demons, no matter how much of a threat they posed. Bathed in moonlight, he cried out as he drew his sword, which consumed the darkness from within its wretched steel. On that night, either the demons or the moon itself would feel the wrath of his blade. I love the way that music starts. And as you can tell just from the outset, this game, like how Ritual of the Moon is supposed to be a semi-successor to Symphony of the Night, is a successor to the mainline 2D Castlevania games. Starting off though, Zangetsu, the best way I can compare him is US NES version Grant from Castlevania 3, very short reach. He has pretty good rapid fire, and if you jump and then attack in midair, you'll land eventually, but if you press B immediately, you can actually get 2 slashes in pretty quickly. Starting off, his starting sub-weapon is the Chain Whip, which just does a little bit of a diagonal attack up and ahead of him like that. But I much prefer this thing, the, I guess, Talisman, which is essentially the Holy Water. You throw it downwards at a diagonal angle, and when it lands, it leaves a residue effect that can damage enemies multiple times. The candles in the game can hold a couple of different things, namely hearts, which in this case are not ammunition, they are actually health in this, unlike Castlevania. There is the blue weapon jars, which you can actually see the gauge for up in the top right, 7 out of 20. That's just straight up your ammunition. Most sub-weapons take between 3 and 4, I think, ammo. There are some that take 5 and even one that takes 6, though. Unlike pre-Symphony of the Night Castlevanias, though, you do have a hard ammunition limit. You can only hold 20 at the start of the game. Not that that matters too much, though, because there's so many candles throughout the stage, if you run low, it's going to be very easy to store yourself back up. Unlike Castlevania, though, well, actually, no, pretty like Castlevania now I think about it, each of the candles is set to what it has. Except for the purple ones. The purple ones drop sub-weapons. However, what sub-weapon it drops largely depends on which one you already have. Sometimes it'll drop the exact same one you have, but other times it'll try to drop one that's either better for your situation or one you don't have. Ultimately, though, I recommend actually trying to switch every sub-weapon more or less any opportunity you can, because they are usually pretty good about giving them to you whenever you're going to need that one in particular. Like this one right here is going to give me the Talisman, which is going to be very useful for this section here where I have basically the Bone Towers from Castlevania. They fire in both directions. A couple of notable control things, though, compared to Castlevania in this game. First off, you still do control like a Belmont. Whenever you jump, you are dedicated to the arc of that jump, so make sure you're jumping in such a way where you probably won't accidentally fall into a pit. And also, unlike Castlevania, where some weapons are used by pressing up and the B button, in this game they have their own button. You press the, it's the Y button on the Xbox controller, triangle on PlayStation, so on and so forth. The top button, essentially. Each stage is split up into several different rooms, and usually, in my experience, a checkpoint happens after every door transition, but sometimes they're a bit meaner about that, other times a bit kinder. It depends on the stage, really. Either way, it's about time we get to the first boss fight. First boss fight of the game is the Glutton Train. This thing, it's large, but it can't do much, because it's stuck there on the right side of the screen. Attack-wise, what it's going to do is move its arm over to the coal on the left and drag it into its heart. You're supposed to stand on this and then just attack the face as much as you can. However, once it does this, its attacks are going to happen. First off, it can fire a little bit of a half-screen wide beam across the screen, and then it can also fire a bunch of projectiles up into the air, in which case they'll fall back on the stage. The notable thing, though, about the attack that falls on the stage is that no two pieces of flaming coal land in the same place twice. So if you just look where the first one's falling and then stand in that exact location, you're not going to get hit again. The best way to dodge the fireball from the belly, though, if you look right to my bottom right now, you can see there's two wheels in very close proximity. Right in between those, I think, is where the fireball disappears, so if you just stand, like, right next to the coal, you're completely fine. Otherwise, strategy for this is Pyrrhic patience. Not Pyrrhic. Pure patience. Oh god, Pyrrhic patience. Oh, that's something else entirely. Just stand on the coal, wait for the attacks to go through, and then do as much damage as you can. I'm not sure which sub-weapon I'd actually recommend for this more, because while the chain whip allows you to reach the Glutton Train from the floor, I could also potentially recommend the talisman by throwing it on the top level of the staircase and just hoping that it hits the head. I'm actually not sure if it does, because I've never brought it into this fight. But if that works, then that works. And that's also a notable thing about when the coal is being dragged. The hand of the Glutton Train doesn't count as a hitbox, so as you can see here, you can just stand on it. The boss is down, but it's not out yet. Taking a note out of Rondo of Blood, the bosses in this game have a desperation attack where they try to get one last shot in on you to see if they can take you out. Even though it's futile and they never can with it. The desperation attacks are threatening looking, but they can never actually kill you. They'll leave you at 1 health. For dodging them, though, you do get an extra life, so there is that, at least. To dodge this one, you just stand behind the coal that it tries to bring out in front of it. But we saw a weird purple orb jut out of the boss at the end there, and it's right there in front of us because it's a person. Now, there are two things you can, well, technically 3 things you can do here. You can talk to her like I'm going to, you can leave, or you can do something I'm going to be doing on the second run of the game. For now, let's talk to her. Thank you for saving me. Was it the demon's power you used to seal that beast? You're a shardbinder. That power can summon forth demons at will. I cannot allow that. Wait, it is true that I am a shardbinder. However, I have sworn to be ever righteous in my command of this power. I refuse to be used for evil. Then show me the proof of that determination in battle. If you're wondering why I gave Zangetsu a shitty Solid Snake impression, it's because he's voiced by David Hayter in Ritual of the Night. Either way, the game takes a note out of Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse here by having multiple playable characters. Each one of them has their own unique abilities, of course. However, each set of abilities also allows you to take different pathways in the stage. Whenever you see a branching path, there's going to be a skeleton, like the one on the top far right of the screen right now, pointing. They generally point in what is the shortest path to the end of the stage. However, you can encounter multiple in a row just in case there's multiple branching pathways. Each character has their own health bar, so in case Zangetsu's low and I switch to Miriam, she's not at low health. However, I swap back, Zangetsu will be at low health. As for Miriam's abilities, she's a Belmont, very long whip, higher jump. She can also slide by pressing down the A button. Each character also has their set of sub-weapons. She just outright starts with the dagger from Castlevania. You press the button, you throw a dagger forward, it stabs something, you're good. And with that, we're moving on to Stage 2. In the case a character dies, though, during a stage, and you have to take a different pathway than what I show off here in this LP, don't worry too much, because even though the skeletons point to the shortest route, that doesn't mean they're also pointing to the easiest route. Sometimes the longer pathways are easier, they're just, longer, and sometimes they actually are harder. It really depends on the pathway. The game does a good job on trying to balance its difficulty throughout. despite things being harder. Miriam's slide, by the way, also has a little caveat that you can't jump out of it, and you're guaranteed to be locked into the slide until it ends. If you're stuck beneath something when it ends, though, you do have to slide again. Earlier up, though, a few moments ago, I actually picked up the triple dagger weapon for Miriam, which is my favorite sub-weapon for her in the game. Especially when paired with this. The triple dagger, you just throw 3 upwards in a diagonal angle. Each hit does count as its own, though, so in case you hit one enemy with all 3, it counts all 3 hits separately. I don't know exactly what to call the sub-weapon I just picked up for Zangetsu. For some reason, I like to call it the Ashura, even though I don't think that's what it's called at all. Essentially, you surround yourself in purple energy, and your attack strength is, I don't want to say doubled, but it's definitely increased. However, if you swap characters while using it, it also applies to those characters. So if I, say, take that and use it with Miriam's triple daggers, that's at least the equivalent of 4 or 5 hits, maybe even 6, heading out towards an enemy. It's super good. Of course, if you're playing the game yourself, you might have your own sub-weapon tastes. You might prefer, for instance, Miriam's axe sub-weapon that we'll talk about later on. That's the one that takes 6 ammo, is very slow, but is extraordinarily powerful. And I think combining that with... I really am just going to call it the Ashura from now on. I actually don't know what it's called. Combining that with that sub-weapon of Zangetsu's can do even more damage, but I don't like the speed of it, for instance. I prefer the reach of the triple daggers just because they can shoot out so wide and at such an angle that I basically don't have to worry about anything from the air. But again, you might have your own. Also, you may have seen these bags I've been picking up throughout the game. Those are just points that go into the score on the top right. They're mostly used to get extra lives. You get, I think, an extra life every 10 to 20,000, which your score can reach the 100,000s in this game if you don't get a game over, so you don't have to worry too much about it. And even then, this game doesn't work like Castlevania in that even though your lives are infinite, your continues aren't, just due to the save system, so even if you get a game over completely, you just start the stage again. That's the start of it. The side sub-weapon is essentially the cross boomerang from the main Castlevania games. It goes across the screen one way and then comes back. If you jump over it on its way back, it will continue to the other edge of the screen and then disappear, though. So, hey, if there's something behind you gotta worry about, you can use that there, too. I, again, prefer the triple daggers, but this one also has its uses in the upcoming boss fight. This is the axe. It's very slow, but very powerful. That enemy takes 5 hits to take out, by the way. This here, if we whip that part of the wall and then slide under it, because this game does have hidden things in the walls, like the wall chicken in Castlevania, we got, I think that's called the crystal. And if you notice, our weapon total is now 24 out of 30. The game, in every stage, has an upgrade for your characters that applies to everyone. Sometimes there's health ups, sometimes there's damage ups, sometimes there's weapon ups. There is even an upgrade back in Stage 1, but we can't get that on the first run of the game. We'll talk more about that in, like, Part 4 or 5. Right now, though, I'm taking my now raised weapon meter and heading over to the second boss of the game, Folklore, I think this guy's name is. To start off, this guy is going to try and get to the bottom right of the screen and fire a giant beam of bubbles at you. You can duck under it no problem, but at the same time he's doing that, he's going to fire another beam at the top of the screen, causing the icicles to fall down, so make sure you're not standing underneath them. After which, you're going to want to try and jump on those icicles to jump over him as he charges across the screen, and then he just kind of waits a few seconds, bringing down some rocks before trying to dive down on top of you. At that point, he enters this attack, which is where he's easily the most open to attack. He's going to do a couple of infinity motions around the screen, with a bubble shield right out of Mega Man that doesn't come back once destroyed. At this point, this is where I recommend using your triple daggers to doing as much damage as you can, and when you run out of that, just continuously whip. At that point, he's going to do his attack motions again, but from the opposite side of the screen. His desperation attack is one I have trouble dodging, especially in the method I take about it. He's going to charge from the left of the screen for one last giant, hey, you're going to die motion before exploding against the wall. You can either jump up at the last second to bait him to go higher, you can jump over him, period, or I've heard you can even attack him to deflect him. I have trouble timing that, though. Overall, I think it's actually a much more fun boss than Glutton Train just because it goes by so much more quickly. That I would be defeated by a demon. I have been thoroughly humiliated. I am Alfred, an alchemist. Alchemist, you use demons to fulfill your worldly desires. Every achievement requires a fair exchange. Even using demons is sometimes necessary. You have your own goals, correct? My power may be of use to even you. Your existence is unsettling to me, but your skills are not without value. I'll leave your head where it is for now. And with that, we get Alfred. Let's see, we have a Grant from Castlevania 3, a Belmont. You could probably figure out the pattern. Alfred is Sypha. He has a very slow, very short distance rod attack, but his big thing is his sub-weapons, his alchemy. They are some of the best sub-weapons in the game, because they can help you with not only stage traversal, but in one particular case that we actually can't get until stage 5, he's super broken against the boss fights. Not to knock his stage traversal though, while his jump isn't anything special, his starting sub-weapon is essentially the fire ring from the Ninja Gaiden games, where you become completely invincible for about 5 to 10 seconds, I want to say. The one caveat with it, though, is you can still get hit while you're in it, technically. If it's not stopped by the Ring of Fire, it will breach it and hit you. The best way I can describe it is that touch damage, in the case an enemy takes more than one shot, will still affect you. Otherwise, you're completely fine. A good combo thing to do with it, though, is to activate that as Alfred, and then immediately switch to Zangetsu when you're right next to an enemy. So you have high rapid fire as well as the extra attack done by the Ring of Fire. Additionally, you can also use it to get into certain pathways that have the green archers that you can't get past normally. The most you're going to be seeing me use Alfred throughout the game, though, does come towards boss fights. Though his other sub-weapon, the Frost Caliber, is also fairly useful for traversal. I'll use that later on, but it's essentially his ice attack from Castlevania 3, even though it's a lot more useful than the one in Castlevania 3. In fact, you can even use it right there, I believe. I think that's actually what the purple candle back there will drop, in case you didn't have that. This stage is probably going to be the one we see the most varied routes of throughout this LP, because I guess I should probably briefly go over what I'm doing this LP now. I'm doing the main game here, obviously, where I'm just kind of going through the game and doing my best. But I'm also doing Nightmare Mode, which you unlocked for beating the game and you saw back at the mode select screen, as well as the Prelude to Ultimate Mode. Ultimate Mode is the third gameplay type that unlocks by beating the game in one particular method. As for the order in which I'm doing that, I'm doing normal mode, then ultimate mode, quote-unquote, and then nightmare mode, though. And the latter two playthroughs are going to be a bit more abridged, just because I'm going to be skipping around a bit more. Come on, open up. Ah, come on. There are a couple times like this, where the breakable walls do lead to completely optional stuff that's not even a pathway, such as extra lives. In at least one case, the extraordinarily powerful weapon for Alfred. Overall, it's just very worth your time to do, though. Because extra lives in this game are not hard to come by, given that I end the game usually with over 10, just due to the score system. But due to how the game works, you can easily build them up. Because I think we'll see this first next part after. But this game's life system is a bit deceiving. I have 6 lives right now. However, you don't lose a life from the life count until all of your active characters are down. So for instance, here I might have 6 lives, but that means I have to lose Zangetsu, Miriam, and Alfred in order for that life to be lost. You can't bring a character back once they're knocked out until that life is lost, but that means you can also theoretically beat a boss fight and not lose a life, because upon beating a stage, any characters who are down are brought back. You'll see that happen a couple times throughout this playthrough, I believe, particularly later on towards Nightmare Mode. Zangetsu, at this point in the game, though, because you have Miriam and Alfred, I don't want to say he becomes your close-range fighter, because Miriam does better at close range anyway, but I'd say he's better for tight spaces. Because thanks to Miriam's high jump, it's very easy to fall right into spikes and take some Actually, it's weird. I recorded this last 2 days ago, but I actually already can't remember if spikes in this game are instant kill. I think they are, but they also might not be. I'm coming up on the upgrade for this stage, and it's the more important one for my playstyle, a heart. It extends your life by 2 units, and that applies to everyone. When I first played the game, I thought it was going to be like the heart tanks in Mega Man X's 4 and onwards. No, 5 and onwards, where they only apply to the character who grabs them, but no, they apply to everyone. And that's especially good for Alfred, because as you can see, his health is pathetically low compared to everyone else's to start. Either way, it's time for the boss of Stage 3, Vallapur. This is one of my favorite bosses in the game. It's arguably the simplest, though. Starting off, the boss is going to send both of his hands off screen, and then starting in one direction, then alternating back and forth, drag piles of coins over the screen to try and crush you in between them. I don't think it's instant death if that happens to you, but it definitely hurts a lot. For the first few, you can traverse them just by jumping, but from the fourth one, the third or fourth one, you're going to need to also attack the coin piles to make sure that they're actually traversable, because you can attack them and they fall apart as such. The best way I can describe the jumping in this game is that most characters only jump 2 tiles high. Miriam jumps, I think, up to the 4th tile at least, maybe only 3. After the 3rd coin wall, though, it goes right into its fist slam attack, where it'll slowly hover and hand over you until it eventually climbs it down, causing a coin wave and 3 enemies to spawn. It spawns 2 zombies and 1 gold golem, who is notably weaker than the normal golems, but I think from the 2nd time onward, it'll always spawn 2 golems and 1 zombie. And then the fight loops. On normal mode, the bosses are good, but their patterns aren't the largest, to say the least. With that said, though, I honestly think the bosses in this game are better than Castlevania's 1 through 4. Rondo Blood, I think, is the first Castlevania game to have really good boss fights. This feels about better than any of them, really. And the desperation attack for Vallapur is that he makes giant waves of coins you have to dodge that the screen slowly gets brighter during, so you just have to keep in mind where things were beforehand. And that's Stage 3, and as the pattern subsists, and as you can tell by the empty space in the HUD, it's time for us to get our last character. Gee, let's see, we have a Belmont, a Sypha, a Grant. It's about time we get our Alucard. Cursed Shardbinder, you carry the power of numerous demons. Very perceptive of you. I require the demon's power to achieve my revenge. At this moment, our objectives align. Cooperation would be fruitful for us both. So be it. I'll let you continue breathing for now. And now we got Gebel. He's Alucard just straight up. He doesn't actually have any normal sub-weapons. He only has his bat form. When he does a normal attack, he fires 3 bats in a quarter circle above and to the right of him. They travel a little bit before fading. He can use the Y button to transform into a bat, in which case you can either press up an X button or the X button to dash around in various directions, all of which take up his weapon meter. The best part of this, though, is that if you attack any of the purple lanterns with him, you're guaranteed to get a drop of 5 ammo. So if you're running low, he's very good for that. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 2, we're going to see what's in Stage 4 and beyond. See you guys then.